Hey everybody, welcome back, and here is another top 10 favorite films from each letter. This one, the letter R. Nice thing about the letter R, unlike the letter Q, is that there were more than enough movies for me to go through for this letter. So first up on the list is Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark. To me, it is a perfect film, and it is one that I often say when people ask me, like, is there a film that you would say is exactly the kind of film you wish you could make? And for me, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think that's also why in film school, I was a little bit of an outcast because I wasn't the one who, was sort of brooding about, trying to tell some personal story about some trauma or something. I was like, no, I want to make Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it's definitely one that every time I watch it, I'm still like, it's almost like I'm watching it for the first time. Next one is an interesting choice, and that is Rawhead Rex. Now, the interesting thing about Rawhead Rex is every time I watch it, I do bother some friends of mine because I always send them a message saying Rawhead. So they know when I'm watching it and they never respond, which tells me a lot. And honestly, I don't know what it is about the movie Rawhead Rex. I just absolutely love it to death. It's one I saw as a kid that's a running theme, and I became so enthralled by the film, so much so that in the 7th grade or 8th grade, I actually wrote a short story for my English class about Rawhead Rex. It was like a Rawhead Rex short story. I don't think my teacher knew what to make of it, but he appreciated because I am a good writer. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but so he gave me an A on that. But even then, I still think he was just like, what did you write here? Next one is an easy one, and that is Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, which is my favorite Hitchcock film. It is one that I still remember. I think what sold me on it is there was this one summer when I was a kid where I wanted to rent as many Hitchcock films as I could and watch them all. Because I think at that point I'd only seen a couple of them. And so I was checking out some of his other ones and, then got to Rear Window. And I still remember getting really into the film, but there's a moment in the film, and I hope I'm not spoiling for anybody who hasn't seen it, but there's a moment where Grace Kelly's character breaks into the apartment and then she's caught. In that moment, I remember, even as the jaded kid who had seen, he thought, a lot of horror films and nothing would get to him. I got so like, that I stood up. I was sitting on the couch and I literally just stood up because it's like, I couldn't, I was like so into the movie. To this day, I still remember that moment. And that was the moment where I think that movie just became literally one of my top favorite films of all time. Next one is Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. As I've said many times on other lists, I'm a huge Tarantino fan, so obviously Reservoir Dogs was going to be on here, but I remember the first time I watched and I really took notice of how well of a writer Tarantino was. I think that was the one that really kind of stood out to me. Next one will come as no surprise because I am wearing the shirt, and that is Return of the Living Dead, what is probably my favorite horror comedy, and I just love it to death, which is so funny because when I first saw it, I didn't get the humor. It just scared the crap out of me. And then obviously as I got older, I much more appreciate the humor now. And what's great is just how many times you can watch. Like, that's one of those films I could watch multiple times in a day. And of course, I make sure I watch it every July 3rd. That is now tradition for me. But even then, I can watch it any time of year. I mean, Lord, I literally just watched it, I think, from this recording like 2-3 weeks ago or something. It's like, I could watch that at drop of the hat at any moment. Next one is a big one for me, and that is Revenge of the Ninja. One I absolutely adore to this day, but obviously one I loved as a kid when I first watched it. And how could you not? When you see the cover on the VHS box with that amazing artwork, like, how do you not want to see it? And that was there was a portion of my life as a kid where, because we would rent movies, every weekend. You rent them on Friday and bring them back on Sunday. And I would say about one weekend a month, the movie I rented was Revenge of the Ninja. I was just renting it all the time until, eventually one day I finally owned it myself. But, yeah. And again, another one, I literally just watched it just a couple weeks ago from this recording, and I just love it. It's just, to me, it's like the ultimate ninja movie. Next one is Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo, starring John Wayne. To me, it's the ultimate John Wayne film. I love his character in the film. I love the movie, too. It's like, portions of it are almost like an early Night of the Living Dead kind of thing. We got characters trapped. for the most part in one location. Kind of survive with the enemy outside. And again, that's another one that, whenever Turner Classic Movies shows it, and if I see so much as like 5 seconds of it, no matter where it is, I'm watching the rest of it. Next one is probably, arguably, one of the best action films ever made, and that is The Road Warrior. I mean, seriously, how amazing is The Road Warrior? And especially knowing that, some of those stunt guys literally almost killed themselves doing some of that stuff. Plus, it's just so entertaining, and obviously I get a lot more of the humor now. It's so just off the wall. And of course, it's shot so well. Kind of one of those ones that's kind of like Predator, like I mentioned in the P's, where it's kind of almost like one of those perfect guy movies. If you happen to meet somebody who doesn't like Road Warrior, it's like, have you been snipped? Next one is Paul Verhoeven's Robocop, a film that I absolutely love. I mean, obviously I love all these, but it's one that technically should probably not work as well as it does. I mean, if you think about it, it's the premise for a really cheesy B movie. A cop who almost gets killed, so they make him into this half android thing, and then he goes out and takes revenge and everything. I mean, it's like that could have gone wrong in so many ways. But it doesn't. It is just like all the right elements that needed to be in place to make that film work were there, and they came together and they made the film work. And talk about one of those highly rewatchable films. You have to love Robocop. And then finally on my list, there were two that were sort of fighting neck and neck. Ironically, both of them with the word running in the title. But this one, I had to go with one that personal favorite, and that is Running Scared. My favorite buddy cop film. And what I love about Running Scared, outside of the fact that I can watch it like 100 times, it is entertaining and it's funny and everything. But what's always pulled me back into it, and what has actually inspired me creatively from the film, is the chemistry between Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines. Their characters and how they interact and get along and everything. That has actually inspired me in so many other screenplays that I've written. It's kind of a special one for me because when I first moved to Chicago as a kid, for whatever reason, it just sort of worked out that was a film I saw literally not too long after I moved there. And it was kind of interesting seeing, Chicago locations, even though some of them may not have looked exactly the same, but it was still Chicago locations, as I'm learning the city and everything and watching this film. Plus, it's just a blast to watch. So that's it. Those are my 10 for the letter R. Obviously, a couple interesting ones, I'm sure. Definitely let me know your picks for the letter R. I'm sure it's a lot easier for you guys as well. Keep an eye out for the next one. Obviously, the letter S, another easy one, but still a lot of films I got to trim down. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.